Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Board of Director Candidate Interviews. I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, and I've again partnered up with the PDGA to bring you guys a little more insight and our chance to get to know some of our candidates. Today, joining me is David Schreff. And David, first of all, welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Terry. I'm doing great. Great to be with you.
Super excited to, again, get to know you a little bit better and have all of our PDGA members have a little peek inside and get more insights to learn more about you. And we're going to start off with some really simple questions for you, and then they're going to get a little bit more complicated and tougher. But here we go. Let's get started. First ones are, how long have you been a PDGA member? And also then, how long have you been playing disc golf?
Oh, well, this is actually my first year as a disc golf player and registrant. Where I generally get attracted to sports is through my kids. I have 3 kids. They're all disc golf players. One of them is a competitive disc golf player down in South Carolina, my oldest son. And so I generally come at sport from the perspective of a fan, participant second, fan first, because every sport, as we know, needs participants and fans to make a game into a sport. So I generally bring a fan's perspective, and of course, with many years of sports media and entertainment and technology background, I bring some additional business overlays to all of that.
Well, and then I guess that answers the final tidbit of all of that, which is what drove you to the sport. What hooked you officially into disc golf?
Watching it, I'm amazed by the aeronautics, the mechanical engineering, the physics of a disc going hundreds of feet, through the skill of many male and female players. I've seen ESPN tournaments, and of course, I've attended a number of disc golf courses in the area. I live in the Northeast, so Connecticut, New York, that area, and I've also observed my sons, my nephews, my cousins, all playing it, who are all in their 20s and 30s. They're much more skillful than I am. I know a lot more about sport than they do. So it balances out when we talk about it. But
All right.
it's the excitement. There's a feeling of life and energy when you watch the release and something going hundreds of feet, and then the skill at the final putt, which might be 20, 30, 40, 50 feet. Amazing to somebody again. So I try to bring the fans' perspective to any sport.
Well, I'll say, as a longtime member of the PDGA and enthusiast of the sport, welcome. We're obviously glad to have you. It's really a Frisbee family, and it sounds like you've already got that family component as part of it, which is awesome. So,
very much.
All right, let's get into a little bit more drilled in, a little bit more specific. And one of the questions that we have for you is, one of the 2 main elements of the PDGA mission is to develop disc golf into a globally recognized competitive sport and recreational activity. What does that mean to you, and how would you contribute as a board member towards this objective?
Well, there I have a lot of experience, Terry. I have worked in the professional basketball business. I was president of global marketing and media for the National Basketball Association. I ran, in addition to the NBA responsibilities, we also represented USA Basketball, which is the Olympic team, going all the way back to 1992 when professional players were first allowed in the sport. So Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, these were guys that I worked with and created the sponsorship, licensing, television, and event marketing businesses around those dream teams that precipitated a global reach for the best of the sport, and that certainly created even higher levels of participation because it's aspirational. So any game that turns into a sport, any sport that has a lot of participants or can gain participants, has the opportunity to be aspirational. What I've seen of disc golf is it's very aspirational. Everybody can get better at it, regardless of where they start, what age they are, what location they are. And so I bring a lot of that. Similarly, I was chairman of the board of USA Volleyball back before the London Olympics. years ago, 2008 to 2012, that period. And volleyball had a very interesting, in some ways, similar approach, in some ways different approach, which is they had massive numbers of participants at the youth level. At the high school level, it became more female focused, trying to get more men, young men. At the college level, it was still many more women trying to get more men. Disc golf seems to have the opposite, a lot more men than women. So the idea of gender equality in participation, training, all of that is very important to create a full-on global sport. So I bring both the participation and the professional knowledge of how to globalize a sports property. I was fortunate enough, as I say, to work for the NBA, for the Olympics, which is USA Volleyball, to work for Walt Disney, Marvel Entertainment. These are all companies that depend upon youth and young adults to drive interest, to drive television, to drive publishing, to drive sponsor activation and licensed merchandise sales. So that's really what excites me. I see a sport that has grown on its own very well, with a lot of amazing talent, both on the course and behind the course. And I think I can add a lot of what I've learned from Olympic marketing, from NBA marketing, from Disney marketing, from Marvel marketing to grow the sport.
Well, thank you for that. And I was going to say that I feel like that really ties right into what the next question is. And maybe there's some overlap. So if you need to drill down, please do. But it says the other element of the PDGA mission is to sustain the growth of the organization. Shouldn't be that tough for me to say. Sustain the growth of the organization, membership, and disc golf. So the same questions. What does that mean to you, and how would you contribute? So again, asking about the sustainable growth of the organization and the membership. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means you have to fill the funnel, Terry, in the back. You have to fill the funnel from the beginning. You have to have much younger kids playing disc golf in shorter courses, maybe more the equivalent of putt-putt golf for that age group when you're first learning to throw. And then as you age up into middle school, high school, and college, obviously there's that fork in the road where there's high talent athlete participants that go on to play at certain levels. And then there's what I would call the core fan of those folks, and then the casual fan. And you need to bring all of them along in order to keep growing the base of the sport, because there's always going to be a pyramid of talent at the top, but participation and being a fan. And every research study I've ever seen from Disney, the NBA, Marvel, and the Olympics tells me that people who play a sport, even if they don't play it that well, are much more likely to purchase product around the sport, to view it on streaming or television or other publishing, buy the merchandise, because they have a sense of how good the top players are. And I think that's very key. That's an area where I really know how to market to Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, which I believe account for the major growth opportunities in the sport going forward.
Okay, and I think we're going to touch on that. That's great. Hold some of those thoughts, because I think a future question is going to kind of talk a little bit about the professional and amateur sides. But first, we're going to move on to question 3 here, and it states that the current priorities of the 2023 PDGA strategic plan include the following areas. And now there's 6 of them. So I'm going to ask you to think about them, and then we're going to have you prioritize just your top 2 out of these 6.
Okay.
So I'm going to give them to you. Hopefully you can soak them in for a second. First one being youth and education, increased support for local clubs, increased support for local clubs, enhancing PDGA leagues, membership levels and benefits, sustainability, and marketing and media. And I'd be happy to repeat those for you, but those are the 6 top priorities, so to speak, that the 2023 PDGA strategic plan has. And so we're looking for you to kind of talk about what you feel like are maybe the most important to you, or where you would prioritize those. And I'm going to quickly recap them: youth and education, increase support for local clubs, enhancing PDGA leagues, membership levels and benefits, sustainability, and then media and marketing. So if you had to pick two of those as kind of your top priorities, what would those be and why?
Hmm. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I have not read the 2023 business plan or strategic plan.
Okay.
So with that caveat, it's hard for me to actually know the detail under each of those bullet points. However, I would say that number 1 through 4 are very similar. So that could almost be not lumped together, but essentially looked at together. And then sustainability and marketing and media are their own unique areas. But certainly, as I mentioned a moment ago, the need to build the bottom of the funnel, the top of the funnel with interest, training, clinics, and education, getting kids particularly to see the fun of it. Right here, I am middle age, and I've been hearing about it through 20 to 30-year-olds. You need to go much younger. You need to have people playing it at a much younger age. Basketball. Look at the largest global sports: basketball, volleyball, global sports. We're talking about soccer. Those three. Not football, not American football. That's very big in the U.S., but not anywhere else in the world. So when it comes to participation, it's really soccer, volleyball, there's other ones, tennis and all that, but that's a more expensive sport. So one of the advantages that youth and participation has in disc golf is it's not a capital intensive sport. You can play it without having the baskets, right? Once you get to a more competitive level, you need a basket, or you need a toy basket, but not the $200+ baskets. And so getting that youth and education part of it, I would say, has to be a key priority. Where do you attract young kids? Well, it usually comes from either coaches, parents, or teachers. Where does that come from? You have to explain the value, the physical education value, the fun value, maybe the competitive value as they get a little older, but mostly about the fun. So that is sort of the youth and education part. When it comes to PDGA membership, of course, you're getting to a narrower part of the funnel where someone wants to get the benefits that PDGA membership enables, which is competition, further education, perhaps clinics with the top talent. I don't know for that for sure, but if that's the case. So being a member has to have its own rewards. And that is something which all of the Olympic sports do very well, very well. They create an aspirational level from youth on. They build it. You join a club, you get into travel teams if you're that good, and then the opportunity becomes for something in college. I might also mention college because I noticed that, I don't know if this is the current number, Terry, maybe you know, but I noticed that in the disc golf college championships, which occurred back in April, there were something like 35 to 40 teams, something like that, pairs, teams. So let's say it's 40. Well, there's almost 4,000 four-year colleges in the United States. So if there were 40 college teams participating out of 4,000 colleges, that's about 1%.
Yeah, and I think to clarify, there is a qualification process. Various teams, I think, are earning their ways into participating ultimately at the championship weekends. But I think your point is still 100% valid that college is an opportunity. College disc golf exists as an organization and partners up with the PDGA. So,
Right.
but your point is 100% valid in that colleges is another opportunity in terms of the youth and education. I guess I think youth a little bit older, but yeah, college of course can be
Right.
part of that. So
Well, and of course, one of the opportunities, and this would be I would call this more of a 10-year plan, is do you have enough participants in the U.S. and 40 to 75 other countries, because that's what you need to make something an Olympic sport. 75 for men, 40 for women. It has to be enough of an infrastructure from that number of countries in order to qualify as an Olympic sport. People never thought that snowboarding would become an Olympic sport. It did, and now look how popular it is. And there's a number of other examples of that. So if the opportunity ever got there through the efforts of PDGA and everyone else involved with disc golf, clearly that would be an ultimate challenge, wouldn't it, if you can get it to that point? But even without that, the fact that there's enough competition, there's enough. I don't know how many golf courses there are for PDGA for disc golf. I read somewhere maybe 8,000. Is that about right?
I was going to say, I think about how quickly they're coming up. Even I would say my numbers are probably outdated. If you think you saw 8,000, I would not be surprised by that. Back when I started, there were sub 2,000. So the fact that
when you think of 8,000 golf courses dispersed across various states in the United States, just taking the country as its focus, not even Europe, Africa, and Asia, and so forth. It probably needs to grow. There probably needs to be enough capital investment from smart entrepreneurs who see the potential for growing this, see the competitive value, see the tournament value, see the sponsor and licensing value in order to invest in that. Much the way golf, I think golf has about twice that number, about almost 16,000 golf courses in the United States, something around there. So the opportunity, though, I come back to is, much like basketball or soccer, disc golf doesn't take a lot of money for the starter. Ultimately, yes, you can have multiple discs and all the uniforms that go with it and that sort of thing, the apparel and all that. But ultimately, you need a disc and a place to throw it, right? And that's a real powerful advantage for a participation sport. It also is a powerful advantage when you get your first disc or two as part of being a member, if you don't already have it. And I think that creates part of, I think it was point 5, sustainability means you have to become a lifelong fan and potentially a lifelong participant. Most sports, you cannot become a lifelong participant because you age out or it becomes too difficult physically. Disc golf, from what I've seen with masters and all that, it allows for a lifetime kind of commitment and enjoyment of it at different levels. And so that becomes part of the sustainability of the sport, much like volleyball, much like soccer, much like, in some cases, tennis for others. And so that is also its own advantage. And then, of course, marketing and media we can talk about all day long. That's my
that's your bread and butter, right?
Bread and butter. I do it every day for media, entertainment, sports, and technology companies. I run a technology company that serves the media, sports, and entertainment industry. We work with a number of niche sports as well as larger ones, and movie studios and television networks. So there's a lot I can contribute there. But ultimately, you need the funnel, right? People saying, that looks like fun. Maybe I'll try it. How do I try it? How do I learn it? Who's going to teach me? Who's going to nurture my growth if I'm any good at it? All of those suggest an order of investment that ultimately winds up being, a Ricky Wasaki or a Eagle McMahon and all those folks, and Paige Pierce. I mean, obviously, these are very young people to have reached the pinnacle of a sport. That's very good for the sport going forward. It also means, though, because it's aspirational, that people who might be 10, 15, 18 years old say, well, if I keep practicing, if I keep getting all the training and the support from PDGA, maybe I too can aspire to be them. So that takes media, that takes marketing, that takes the manufacturers that are investing in the sport. All those discs that you have behind you, I assume they're from different manufacturers. But that's the point. You have enough manufacturers out there right now that are saying, we believe in the future of the sport. We're going to keep creating, innovating, and distributing.
Okay. Well, I know we've gone through all those priorities, and with whatever one, and maybe it's the marketing, as you were stating, what would you say? What skills and experiences do you have? Give us something specific that you feel like could really help the board so that we can push it forward.
Well, I would never pretend that I know more about disc golf than any other board member. I don't. But I probably know more about sport marketing than many, and
Okay.
sport media, and sport sponsorship, and sport licensing. That's
Okay.
where I would make a difference. And on top of that, I know audience development, which is slightly different than participant development. That's part of the
Certainly.
audience. But my whole world has been focused on marketing to Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, whether it's an NBA basketball fan, or a Marvel superhero comic book and comic licensing fan, or a Walt Disney television fan and character fan. I've marketed Michael Jordan, Mickey Mouse, and Marvel superheroes in my life. I feel like I can aid the current board in identifying what makes for top talent to really break through, not only within the disc golf community, but in the sport community overall. And that takes a slightly different set of talents than than a single sport focus. So I can bring that multi-sport and multi-entertainment focus, as well as as I said, the upper funnel, generating opportunities for youth and young adults to participate. Those would
Okay.
be,
Awesome.
I would say,
That's great.
so 1 in 7, 1 in 6, I guess, would be the answers to your question going with.
Okay. All right. Well, and I feel like this one, of course, then should tie in nicely to everything that you've been talking about. It says there's a burgeoning professional scene that attracts eyeballs, but the vast majority of our membership is amateurs. What do you think the organization's balance between the two should be? Uh, so we have, of
It's an
course,
excellent
a lot of
question.
promotion on our top pro side. You just mentioned Wysocki, Pierce, Macbeth, all of those individuals, but yet our membership, in terms of the people that are signed up and members, are mostly or are largely amateur. I don't know if it's 60 or 73%, something like that, is amateur. How do you balance those two, between what those two focuses?
Well, as far as providing services to both, I mean that's one thing, but the fact that that's a balance, I don't know that that's as important a balancing act. At least initially, I would have to learn a whole lot more from other board members and past board members and manufacturers. Where do they think the opportunities are there, Terry? I mean, I don't really know the full answer to that. Generally, the professional level is the tip of the spear or the tip of the pyramid in any sport, right? One less than 1% of college bound athletes, excuse me, less than 1% of college athletes ever go pro in their sport: football, basketball, soccer, less than 1%. So I don't know that that's as much of an issue as that there's an aspirational level and support for the professional to get even better, to get more media exposure, to build their celebrity, their brand, and the brand of PDGA associated with their individual brands as well. That is an area that you can look at the greatest sports marketing out there, right? Um, NBA stars are NBA stars in their own right, but they're also part of an NBA pantheon. They're part of an entire umbrella organization through which they play. I think that's the same here. You need fans, you need participants, and you need the pros to drive that entire value chain. That's what I would be very well aware of in working on the board with other board members.
Okay. This next one, number 6, says there is evidence such a current surge of membership and event growth, staff size, etc., that says stay the course, with where the PDGA is heading and what we're doing. And on the other hand, there are other people that feel the PDGA needs to change. Where do you fall on that spectrum, and why?
Again, I think it would be premature for me to answer that, Terry. I don't
Sure.
know the other board members yet. I don't know those who served before them, because every board builds on the strengths and capabilities of the one before it. So I think what I would do in the first month or two or more of being a board member is ask a ton of questions, just like I do with every other piece of business I ever look at, which is what's worked, what hasn't worked, why, where are the gaps, what are the resources to fill them? Do we have the resources, or do we have to go find them? Do you need financial investment? Do you need media investment? What do you need in order to bridge those gaps? That's where I would, be asking such questions, and then hopefully the rest of the board would help make such decisions, along with guiding the executive team, which ultimately has to implement them. A board is only there to ultimately provide strategy and direction, but the execution of all that has to be done by the executive team. And so, in getting to know all of them, I think we would find out where the opportunities are.
Well, I'll jump in there quickly and provide a little bit of a follow up of my own, in the sense that, our sport, our governing body, has been around for 40-ish years, and I think there's a lot of conversation as to, the steady growth that we've had for all of these years. I've been fortunate enough to be around for about 25 of them.
Right.
For that growth, do we need to get wild? Do we need to get crazy? Do we need to veer, take a sharp turn one way or another and really mix things up? Or do we continue on what seems like we'll say slower but very sustained growth throughout all of these years? I think that's certainly going to have to be something I'd love for you to analyze. If you become a board member, you to analyze that and come in with a fresh perspective. I think there would be an advantage there. So,
well, that's very good. Well, and you just answered the question, which is someone has to analyze it with me if I were to join the board, because with 40 years of experience, that's a remarkable set of capabilities we can learn from and build upon. And any organization's I don't think I've ever been part of any media or membership organization that doesn't have the let's go slow, steady growth, or let's take some chances and perhaps risk a couple of failures here and there, but in the effort to grow it or to leapfrog it with new audiences. So the advantage that disc golf seems to have is there's a lot of youth energy around it. The top athletes are very youthful. That's a great sign. It also has, though, the opportunity for pro-am. It has the senior tours. It has other ways of capturing lifelong commitment to the sport, which, as I said a little while ago, is a great advantage. Not every sport has that. This one does. I can be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, perhaps 70 or more. I used to observe the USA volleyball championships, which were done age appropriately, and the highest ranking groups there, highest age ranking groups, were teams of 75 and older. Volleyball, 6-person volleyball on each side. That's remarkable. That's a lifelong sport. Isn't that wonderful? Now, they don't play as well as Penn State or Stanford or whatever, but they were playing. Isn't that remarkable? So I can see disc golf as being that opportunity. And if you can create lifelong fans at the youth and teenage level, that's the time to do it. There was a very famous chief marketing officer at Coca-Cola who created a term, of course, being one of the world's greatest marketing organizations overall, but also one of the greatest sports and entertainment marketing organizations, tying in with the Olympics, the World Cup, and many other. And he said that Epicenter 17, that was the term that they used, Epicenter 17. Our job, he said at that time in Coca-Cola, is to persuade 17-year-olds about the value of Coca-Cola brand soft drink. Because if we get them there, we'll have them forever. They won't switch to Pepsi or other other brands. Very interesting. And that was based not on my research, but on a ton of research they did. So here you have a sport that is already capturing attention at teenage interest levels, and up. What a great advantage that is for disc golf, I think. And then the key is make sure that there's enough competitive value, participant value, enjoyment, friendships that get created, social experiences that get created on the course and off the course. If that occurs, you have a lifelong sport, and therefore you have lifelong members.
Okay, well, this leads to again some of what you were just talking about. In that it says in your bio under disc golf experience that that section actually was omitted, and your player profile is blank. Do you feel like the lack of disc golf experience and understanding of the game and culture will hinder your effectiveness as a board member? I mean, I think that's a long worded way of saying you're pretty fresh. You're still pretty new.
I never played volleyball before I became chairman of the board of USA Volleyball, the pinnacle of Olympic volleyball. Why? Because I knew sport, I knew media, I knew sponsorship, I knew licensing, and I knew the world through fan value. The fans ultimately drive the value of the sport. The participants enable the fans to enjoy it. So no, luckily there's lots of other people who play the sport, who serve on the board. Thank goodness, because they're going to bring all those years and decades of knowledge about the sport itself.
Okay,
So no, I don't think that. I'll give you one very quick story. It's a true story, and it's just before I joined the NBA. David Stern was the commissioner of the NBA at that time. I was working for Disney. He saw Disney as his model. He wanted to make the NBA at that time the Disney of sport, which they ultimately did. Michael Jordan replaced Mickey Mouse, that sort of thing, and sponsorship and licensing and television. We met for several days during a period where he was interviewing me with other people there. And at the end of the 3 days, he said, "Well, do you have any other questions for me?" And I said, "Yes. How come in 3 days you've never asked me if I like basketball? In fact, we've never even talked about whether I know anything about basketball." And he looked at me like I had four eyes and said, "Can you dunk?" I said, "No." He said, "Can you make a presentation to the CEO of Coca-Cola that will drive our sponsorship revenue from here to there?" I said, "I can do that." And I did. And that deal lasted 25 years. So I can do that. I can do that with disc golf too. So luckily,
Okay.
there's lots of other great people who know the sport like yourself, who have participated at the amateur and pro level. I can, and I learn. And of course, I'll participate too. But no, that's not why I'm interested in joining the board. I'm seeing a sport in transition that can enjoy its current growth and perhaps enjoy further hyper growth. That's where I can help.
Okay, and then the final one question here that we've got for you, it says, "What do you bring to the table that sets you apart from the other candidates, and why should they vote for you?"
Well, it's what I really was just saying, that I bring
Yep.
Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z experience and expertise, marketing, licensing, sponsorship, television, streaming, online, e-commerce, all of these skills, all of these business areas that can be part of the monetization of PDGA growth going forward. That's where I can help the most.
Awesome. Well, David, I have to admit, and I think the rest of the world will, if they haven't figured it out, we have a lot of longstanding members that are running for the board. Obviously, you're one of our newest members, and I said it already. Welcome to the disc golf and frisbee family. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you. I hope that all of our voters are now a little bit more well informed and that they can make their best possible decisions. But thanks for joining, and best of luck to you.
Thank you very much, Terry. I appreciate the time. I certainly hope that I'll have a chance to serve the board going forward.
All right. Again, everyone, I'm Terry Miller, the disc golf guy. This is David Schreff. This has been your 2021 board candidate interview. We hope you got to know him, and we'll see you on the next one.
Take care, Terry. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.